So our discussion today focuses on chapter 13, which is adapting verbally and visually. This is what they class as the fourth step in the speech process. First, we're going to look at adapting verbally. This is more or less where you are looking to enhance your verbal communication so that your audience are able to understand what you are saying. So we are on page 305 for those of you who will be following with your text, adapting to your audience verbally. So the first point is relevance. You want to make sure that as you share your presentation that you establish time and how relevant that information that you are sharing to your audience is important to them, how they can apply what you're saying to understand it. If you're looking at timeliness, you're looking at given timelines within your presentation. You want to establish what they call proximity so that the person can understand you're talking about a situation that occurred in a particular area. They may not know that area or region, so you want to maybe pull from their knowledge, share other areas around so they can understand. And then the last they say is demonstrate personal impact. You want to know how whatever it is impacted you. Create common ground. Now common ground is one of the most crucial parts. If you can create common ground with any listener, whether it's outside of a speech, if you have an interpersonal conversation with someone, common ground is so important, and more or less even with a speech it's extremely important. You want to make sure that the person is able to understand you and you understanding them. Let them know that you understand how they feel and that you know maybe how whatever emotions they're going through. It's always advised that you use personal pronouns. A lot of times people say when you're chatting with someone, stop referring in the third person. You want to say you and I, and just maybe make immediate contact with your audience. Ask rhetorical questions that your audience think, so that they can start processing. They know that you think about what you care about, what they're thinking. And lastly, draw from common experience. So you're presenting to your classmates, share something or pull from, as you chat, tell them, we as students go through, or we as human beings, if you can't find anything, let everyone know whatever common ground you have. Speaker's credibility, we spoke about that. You need to make sure that whatever you say shows credibility or shows your credibility. You need to establish. Nobody wants to listen to someone who is a liar. You also need to establish, if you are doing, say, a presentation on psychology, or if you're a pastor preaching, you also want to show that you know what you're talking about and you have experience within that field and you're just not rambling aimlessly. You want people to trust you as you speak, so that if you share an experience, they know that you really and truly experienced that thing, or you're not just making it up. And lastly, you want to be personable. People like people. You want to know that at the end of the day, whoever is speaking, whoever you're listening to, that they are human. You don't want to, you sit in a meeting and you hear individuals chatting and be like, don't they realize that we're humans too? So as you do your presentation, as you write and you speak to your audience, remember it is people that you're speaking to. Something that is crucial is information retention. The brain, I sat in a presentation where someone spoke about retention and I was told that 15 seconds. If you can't get someone's attention in 15 seconds, you lose their attention. And generally in a speech, the first minute is what is going to keep your audience attention. When you are looking at retention, comprehension, retention, you need to remember that you have to appeal to people who have different learning skills, and there's diversity. Then you need to also use clear language, vivid language, and those things we spoke about when we did verbal communication, and try to compare unfamiliar things that you think the audience are not familiar with. Try to compare it with stuff you think that they will be familiar with. You also want to focus on adapting to cultural differences. Don't be a snob and speak ill of another culture. That even if that person is not from that particular culture, that can be quite offensive. You don't know if they have family members that belong to another culture. So all of those things are verbal adaptations or things that you can work on to appeal to others. Now we're going to focus on visual aids. When looking at visual aids, they are things to help your audience understand what you're seeing. It's not about being a distraction. It's about helping your audience see things visually. So there are different types of presentation aids, so we're going to look at it. First of all, we have actual objects, and actual objects are the items themselves. So if you present it on a cell phone, you show the cell phone. That's the actual object. If you are talking about a car and the engine, you may want to have a car and an engine. Then you have models, and those are mimics of, say, something that you can't, for example, have the actual object. So if you are studying the eye and the parts of the eye, you're not going to be able to pop out someone's eye and look at it. You'll have an enlarged eye that's a model of the eye that we have, and you're actually able to see the different parts. And you have photographs. So talking about how severe an accident was, you try to explain it. Sometimes explaining you can't do justice to to create that visual image. So showing a picture, you may just have to not even say a word because that picture shows it. Then you have simple drawings and diagrams, and this works well like charts and those kind of things where you're able to show an illustration to help. Maps are another visual aid, and they help to bridge like location. So someone is telling you it was snowing in a particular area, have no clue what part of North America that is, and they show you on a map. Then charts. Charts are very helpful to show demographic information or conceptual information that is a little tough to understand. So you have a process and you're not fully getting all the elements within the process. A chart helps with that. Whereas graphs help more or less with mathematical and statistics. In a survey done, 92% of females said X, Y, and Z. 92% sounds really large, it sounds important, but when I see it in, say, a pie chart or a graph where it has something really tall and something really short, it creates a visual image in my mind. Then you have audio aids, and that is oral, like a song, you want to play it so others can hear it. Then you have other visuals like this video that we're doing. You get the audio and you also get the visual aspect of it. So criteria for choosing presentation aid. You want to create aids that are important, you want to create aids for important information that the audience needs to understand and remember. Create aids for ideas that are complex and difficult to explain verbally and also visually. That is so crucial. Create aids that are appropriate for the size of your audience. So you're not going to have a visual aid of a small little picture and the class has like about 60 persons. You're not going to see that image. Limit the number of visual aids so that you do not distract you as a speaker and sometimes even your audience. Too many visual aids, you cannot handle all the visual aids because you have to maybe bring them out in a certain rotation. You're busy trying to pull out your visual aids or use them that you totally forget about your speech. Use media aids when you have equipment readily available. So for my 4:30 class, we have no projector or anything over in that area, so it's going to be quite difficult for us to set up that area for you to use a projector. And consider preparation time and expense when choosing it. So you want to do a handout but you have no money. That's not going to be quite handy. Then designing effective presentation aids. This is so crucial because I spoke to you guys about the idea of people preparing PowerPoint presentations and they have all the words listed there. That it's not effective because the mind reads and the eyes read faster than the voice. Limit the reading required of the audience. You don't want your audience reading too much. That totally distracts them and loses their attention. Customize presentation aids from other sources. Don't want to be taking somebody else's presentation and using it as yours. Use a photo, print, or a size type that can be seen easily by all audience. Don't do a PowerPoint presentation, the words are too tiny and your audience cannot read it. Use a print style that is easy to read. A lot of times people choose fancy fonts and you're unable to read it as, again, something very simple and natural. Make sure information is laid out in a way that is visually pleasing. You don't want to have everything all clustered together. You have words and images all over and stuff are animated and little blinky things all over. Those are rather distracting and it's very hard for your eyes to focus on words. Use pictures and other visual symbols to help add interest, but you don't want to add too much that you lose interest. And then you use colors strategically. Know that black and white work well as background colors, and then you have coordinating colors. If you have it's always recommended that if your background is light, that your text, when you put it right in text, that you put a light color text, and if your background is light, which is never recommended, your text should be dark in color. And lastly, the methods for display and presentation aids. You have posters. That's more or less where you create posters, or you have posters printed and you're able to stick them around so that your audience can review them. Whiteboards or chalkboards. Yes, people still do use chalkboards, and there are even portable chalkboards now where you can write. Chalkboards are more or less what requires if you have to write. Whiteboards and chalkboards, you write, you emphasize something. Then you have flip charts, and flip charts can be made at home or can be bought. Handouts. A lot of people love to use handouts, and that is just where you're giving someone information to take for them to take with them. So that if you want to give a handout, say on drinking and driving, that you can't cover a whole area of drinking and driving, you're just sharing your experience, what has happened to you. You're able to give a handout on drinking and driving that shows statistics or research that more or less supports your presentation without you having to spend too much time to explain about that. Then you can have things like projectors, DVD players, CD players to just play material, whether it's audio and or visual. Then you can have computer mediated slideshows, so you have pictures collated together and you have them going on as a slideshow. So those are the different types of presentation styles or methods that you can use, and your next section will focus on dealing with anxiety.